Welcome to another edition of Community Conversations. I'm your host, Laura Wagoner. In my community affairs role at Villanova University, I've met many exceptional people doing extraordinary work, from university professors and leaders of service organizations to law enforcement officials and township commissioners. The goal of this program is to provide you, the viewers, a monthly glimpse of the people making headlines at Villanova and across the township. Today, I'll introduce you to two of those people that play an instrumental role in helping make Villanova University the special place it is. Our first guest is Nicholas Tumalo. Nick graduated from Villanova in 2010 with a bachelor's degree in civil and environmental engineering and graduated in 2012 with a master's degree in public administration. Nick began working at Villanova in residence life and managed the daily operations of the residence halls. He now serves as the Assistant Dean of Students and oversees the student conduct system and supports other student life functions. Our second guest is Sydney Scheiner. Sid is the coordinator of conduct and community engagement in the Dean of Students office at Villanova. She attended the University of Delaware for her undergraduate degree and completed her graduate degree in college student personnel at the University of Tennessee. Sid's role in the Dean of Students office largely focuses on student conduct, as well as serving as a resource for students living off campus. Sid is additionally involved in Villanova's bystander intervention training, safe zone training, and serves on several committees pertaining to student organizations. Welcome.
Hey, Laura.
Hello. Thank you for joining me this morning.
Of course.
So Nick, you've been at Villanova for a number of years now. Can you talk a little bit about your background at the university and how you got to be where you are today as the Assistant Dean of Students?
Sure. So I started out at Villanova as a freshman engineering student. During my time as an undergraduate, I became really involved, on campus and in the community, and realized that, maybe engineering wasn't the path for me, and that I instead, wanted to work with college students and wanted to work in a higher education setting and being in that world. So I went right into graduate school for public administration, which people always ask me what that is, and
Yes.
I say it's like a Master's of Business Association or an MBA administration, but for the public or the nonprofit world. And higher education institutions for the most part are nonprofit. So it really gave me the tools that I needed to be successful in that setting. I was lucky enough right after I graduated with my master's degree, a position in residence life on Villanova's campus opened up where I served as an area coordinator, so I oversaw the residence halls and just supported the daily operations of those. I supervised the RA staff, I worked with facilities, I did programming for all the students that live there, addressed any issues that came up in the residence halls. And that was a really great experience getting to work with students. I lived on campus as a professional staff member. Because I started an on-call rotation to address, any issues that came up overnight.
In a residence hall?
Or on campus in general. So did that for a few years, and then was really fortunate to move into the Dean of Students office as the Assistant Dean of Students. I've been there since about 2016, the beginning of 2016. And in that role, my main focus is to oversee the student conduct system, but really, in the Dean of Students office, we like to think of ourselves as, we do whatever is needed to support students outside of the classroom. So for any non-academic issues or challenges or concerns that might come up in the community, we work to address those and resolve those and support those. So whether it be student conduct issues, whether it be personal concerns, whether it be family issues or friendship, concerns, we really do whatever we can to support those students to help them be, as successful as possible within the community.
Wow, you're very involved. And you also just oversaw our entire graduation process, right?
Well, yes, I was part of that production. It takes a lot of people to put on our culminating event, at Villanova, where we send all our graduates, into society to do good things. I love being part of that event. Again, it's really the final culminating experience for our students and their families. It's probably for many of them the last time that they'll be in our community. So we want them to have a great experience and send them off in style.
That's great. And Sid, you're, like me, fairly new to the Villanova community. Can you talk about how your position came about, sort of your background, and how what your role is in the Dean of Students office?
Sure. So a little bit of a different background than Nick. So I did not attend Villanova. I, as you said, went to the University of Delaware for my undergrad. And also, similarly to Nick, though, got very involved. So involved in new student orientation. I was a tour guide. So I also kind of got sucked into higher education and realized that I, too, in a sense, wanted to be a college student forever. And so what better way to do that than to work, at an institution of higher education. So that's what I also knew I wanted to do. So I pursued my graduate degree in college student personnel at the University of Tennessee. So a lot of people, when they say my degree is in college student personnel, they're like, what exactly is that? So to kind of give you a sense of what it might be, I studied everything from student development to higher education finance to administration to counseling theory, so really a bunch of different classes to kind of just give me a foundation in supporting college students and their development and kind of work in that non-academic realm, like Nick was saying before. So was really fortunate to see this position pop up at Villanova and learned that it was a brand new position, which is equal parts very exciting and very challenging because you don't have a precedent to follow, as you know.
Yes.
So really what the position focuses on is, largely focuses on the student conduct process. So before me, Nick, or, before who's an assistant dean of students role, it's always been just that person, the assistant dean of students role, which when I learned that was a little bit mind-blowing to me because, yes, we're relatively a small institution, but for one person to do that is a lot. So I was really happy to come in and at least have that other person to support Nick in the student conduct process. So I do hear a lot of conduct cases, so we split that. And I kind of have a special focus, like you mentioned, on off-campus students. So my role is the coordinator for conduct and community engagement. So not just solely conduct, which is what I love about it. That's not 100% of my job, that I get to do other things as well. Because, like we said, in the Dean of Students, we're really overall student support. So I can, we can kind of finagle our positions to really be relevant to almost anything, which I love. So if it's outside of the classroom, student support, whatever that might look like, we can really have our hand in that. So I've kind of, in addition to, working within the student conduct process, like you had mentioned, I'll do different trainings for students, support our off-campus students. So I've met proactively with a lot of off-campus students and kind of just serving as that resource for them to say, hey, just because you're off-campus doesn't mean that we don't know you're there anymore and we don't care about you. We do. This is just a different, time in your Villanova career. So let's talk about ways that your experience off-campus can be really positive. And that might include educating them on the code of student conduct. It may be reaching out proactively if there's any issues going on. So kind of a lot of different things rolled into one.
Sure. And so, Nick, this position did not exist before. How does Sid's role change sort of your office dynamics pertaining to the community?
In so many ways. Where do I begin? Sid and her position just really expanded our capacity in multiple different ways. We really like to focus on first and foremost, education and prevention, to really give our students the tools to be successful and to, know how to be, successful college students, how to be, successful citizens. So, adding Sid to our office, gave us the opportunity to really expand our offerings on different educational and outreach and proactive opportunities to, again, try to be preventative, whether it be, to prevent issues from happening or to prevent a student from being not successful, or whatever it might be. So different, workshops and trainings and initiatives, which I think we're going to talk about in a little bit, are currently being developed or have been developed, again, to really focus on the educational, the prevention, the proactiveness aspect of the overall student experience and the overall success of our community. Sid was also really instrumental in us being able to spend a little bit more time on when we have to be reactive. The reality of being in the college setting is that there's going to be issues, whether it be student conduct issues, whether it be mental health crises, whether it be different conflicts or what have you. It's really important that we address those in a thoughtful and meaningful and productive way. And being able to, now have a little bit of a team of us doing this, we can really focus on, how do we evaluate what's going on and address it and follow up with it in a way that is going to be beneficial to all involved. And many times we see, when we live in community, when there's issues, they affect a lot of people. And, we work really hard to see how can we, address and resolve things that are going to be, for the benefit of everyone involved. And sometimes that's challenging and requires a lot of, compromise and mediation and, understanding. But, we work hard to get to that common ground where everyone understands that they are a member of the community and need to do their part to move everyone forward.
Sure. So speaking of some of those initiatives that we worked on, our offices have partnered together on many initiatives this year, including the Back to School Barbecue, the Good Neighbor Guide, working with Radnor Police on a letter to our students, and soon to come off-campus housing orientation. So we've seen monumental success with these initiatives this year. Nick, can you talk a little bit about that partnership with Radnor and Lower Merion Police, our offices, and how that compares to previous years, maybe sort of that outreach that we've done that's preventative that maybe wasn't being done before?
Yeah, absolutely. I feel really, fortunate in my job to have such a good relationship with our community partners, whether it be the police or township administrators or what have you. I talk to a lot of colleagues at other schools who just aren't lucky enough to have that relationship. So, I'm so grateful when we have the opportunity to do more because we do have the relationship, whether it be with Radnor Township or Lower Merion Township. We're always looking for feedback from our neighbors and from our the members of the community, and a lot of these initiatives came from that feedback. Also, just looking at current trends and patterns within our own, student body, we recognize things that we can be, doing more of. And, when you combine that with the feedback that we get from the community, we came up with some really successful initiatives that are, pretty recent. Ones that you mentioned, the Good Neighbor Guide, was a direct result of feedback that we received from both students and from community members in the townships to, provide some more, again, education and awareness about how to be successful, living among, a community. I've been really happy with the progress we've made. You mentioned the letter that we partnered with
Radnor Police.
Right? So at the beginning of the school year, for all of our students that live within Radnor Township, we worked on a letter together. It was a joint effort between our Student Government Association, between the Dean of Students Office, and between the Radnor Township Police Department to put out a letter welcoming students to the community, wishing them a lot of luck and success, but also, giving them some encouragement and motivation and some tips about how to be a good neighbor. For students moving off campus, this is a very significant transitional period in their life. For most all of them, they have never lived sort of on their own before, and for the first time are responsible for paying rent and working with a landlord and taking care of utilities and also being a neighbor. And that's a new experience for them. And just like when anything is new, when you start a new job, sometimes it takes a little bit of time to learn and adjust and to get good at it. So our role is to help with that adjustment and to make that as effective as possible. So for these students that are, first time residents in a community, they need to learn how to do that in the right way. And, we take it really seriously to help them, learn and understand as quickly as possible.
Yes.
But also in a way that, is beneficial for their overall, development and education.
Yeah, so Sid, you and I worked a lot on the messaging for the Good Neighbor Guide, which was very positive, very simple, be smart, be respectful, be considerate. And that really resonated, I think, with a lot of our students. We've gotten very positive feedback from our community partners. Why do you think that approach was so successful?
Yeah, I love the approach that we took because we really came at it from a standpoint of here are things that you can do and here are things that maybe you should think about doing, not from the standpoint of don't be loud, don't do these things, don't do that. And so in working with college students, that's it's already coming at it from a deficit standpoint of here are the things that we know you're going to do and you're going to do wrong. And I feel like we've really treated our students with respect and
like adults,
right? And so if we as the university, take the initiative to treat them like adults, that's going to resonate with them. So I think that messaging was intentional, and I think that's why it was so positive, because here's things that you should think about doing, rather than focusing on the negative. So I think they feel empowered to say, oh yeah, I can do that, and I should do that. And I really appreciate, what Nick said, is that it does take practice, and it does take learning how to be a good neighbor, and it's not going to happen immediately. And that's when we sort of have to be a little bit reactive sometimes, but that is... that's why I think we have a great system, and we have, we approach it with empathy, and we approach it with understanding and accountability. So I appreciate that we kind of allow them that space to also learn, because they are going to make mistakes, and that's okay. And I think we are really lucky to live in a place where our students really are, for the most part, great, and they want to be good neighbors. But right, things happen. But I think, being exposed to that messaging and just saying, hey, we're trying to come at this from a positive standpoint, because we want both the community and you as students to have a mutually beneficial experience, right? And there's a way to achieve that. So here are things that we can all do so that you're enjoying yourself and you're enjoying your time off campus as a student, but our community, and maybe some of our non-students in the community it's not at their expense, right?
Sure. Yeah, so at colleges and universities, the reality is most students are 18 to 22 years old. There will be mistakes made, as you mentioned. So in those cases, what is it that your office does in off-campus housing situations or on-campus campus housing if there is an issue? What steps do you take to educate students and sort of remedy any incident that occurs?
Yeah. Well, that's the time, when I was speaking about us being reactive, that's when that process kicks in. We do receive reports from Lower Merion Township and Radnor Township if they involve our students. And they go through our student conduct process. So not only are they obviously facing penalties and fines and citations from, the criminal justice system when they're, cited by police, or if there are, ordinance violations or what have you, but they also are held accountable through the university. What our process looks like is once we receive that report, we evaluate it. Almost, always we'll call the students in for an intentional conversation. We'll review the report with them. We will, give them notice of what the alleged violations were of our Code of Student Conduct, which, as an aside, our Code of Student Conduct is really our community expectations, and it applies both on and off the campus. So if you are enrolled in Villanova and you are, a member of the Villanova community, no matter where you are in the world, you are accountable under our Code of Student Conduct, which in some ways mirrors, local laws and ordinances, but frankly, in many ways is a little bit more restrictive, because we, expect very high things from our students, and have very high expectations of Villanovans. So we expect them to meet these standards that are outlined in the code. So when those standards are violated, we give them notice of what the alleged violations are. We'll review the report with them. We give them an opportunity to sort of share their perspective and what happened. And if there's responsibility, for violating the code, then we issue appropriate sanctions. I will say almost always our students are take a lot of ownership for their mistakes, and they're very remorseful and sometimes embarrassed, and really understand the impact that they've had on themselves and on the community. And in our conversations with our students, when there are problems, we really try to focus on that. Being such a community-based institution, we really think about, how our actions impact not only ourselves, but the people around us. And what does that look like? And how can we do that better? And that I find really resonates with Villanova students, because again, people come to Villanova because they want to be positive,
contributing members of society.
Exactly. Words right out of my mouth. So when they sort of have, more of an enlightenment that, their decisions can sometimes detract from the community, they really want to work harder to do better. And, our sanctions that we issue when there are violations of the code are meant to be, provide accountability, but are also meant to, provide motivation and encouragement and education and awareness for them to move forward and to do better and to be better. At the end of the day, we are an academic institution. Our role is to educate and to develop young people. So we use our sanctioning model to do just that. Unfortunately, in frankly rare circumstances, there are incidents where we'll need to separate from a student. They just have no place in our community anymore for very, very serious reasons. Like Sid mentioned, we're very lucky at Villanova that our students are for the most part really good people who sometimes make mistakes, like all of us. So we use those as opportunities to help them get to a point where they are going to be nothing but those positive and contributing members of our community.
That's great. Sid, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I was just going to say, a lot of times when students come in who live off campus and have an incident, they'll come in and they'll say, well, I don't get why I'm here. I was off campus. And so that's a really great opportunity for us to kind of talk about, well, when you choose to come to Villanova, what I love about Villanova, and I hope you do too, is that you're getting holistic education, right? We actually care about you even when you're not in the classroom, right? So when you graduate with your Villanova degree, what that tells somebody is that you don't just have the academic intelligence of someone who attended Villanova. You have the decision making, you have the judgment, you have the moral character, you have the maturity, right? So a lot of times those developments are happening outside of the classroom, and sometimes through the forms of mistakes, right? Oftentimes. And when I talk about that with students, I think they sort of get it, and they might be, it might take a second for them to kind of understand. They think they're off campus, and that what they do doesn't impact. And we have that conversation, and like Nick said, they do have that light bulb moment, and they realize, okay, yeah, you're right. I do can impact my community. So I think I really appreciate being here, and we do have that emphasis on community, so it really kind of fits seamlessly into our off-campus population.
Great. So while we are not located as a university in Bryn Mawr, we do have a lot of students living in Bryn Mawr. So can you talk a little bit about sort of the impact you see in terms of service, opportunities for internships, assistance with nonprofits, student spending in our community, just sort of the impact you see on the students positively living in Bryn Mawr, on its businesses and in the community? Yeah,
I think we're so lucky to live, in a location where we have communities like Bryn Mawr, and just being on the main line in general. When I was a student, I lived in Bryn Mawr and got to see firsthand, the opportunities to really engage in the community as a young adult. Again, when you move off campus for the first time, you now have this plethora of different resources and opportunities to really, do some civic engagement. And again, I think our students, far and wide are already very, very motivated and very, engagement focused. So they're always looking for those opportunities. So, when they live off campus and, they are able to, get involved with, various nonprofits, or even just, to enjoy the businesses and whatnot that are in the community. I think that our students really enjoy that, because it's again their first opportunity to sort of be an adult and enjoy those civic engagement pieces of adulthood. So we see that a lot with our students. Whether it be just enjoying, all the wonderful businesses, restaurants, shops, and whatnot in Bryn Mawr and the surrounding areas, to, engaging in different, volunteer, nonprofit opportunities. As Villanova is, very service oriented, and I think we, instill that in our students, when they live on campus, and they really take that with them when they move off campus. So they're still looking for those opportunities.
Can you talk a little bit about our day of service and sort of what that totally encompasses? On campus, off campus, alumni, and just give us an overview of that?
Yeah, absolutely. That's really a highlight of what we do at Villanova. It's one day a year, usually in September, where pretty much our campus community drops whatever they're doing, and we go out into the local community to serve and to be with neighbors and work with the people in our local communities, at different nonprofits, at different churches, at schools. almost every student participates. So, we'll send out, about 6,000 people, from campus into the larger Philadelphia area. Some of those places include, different institutions, churches, schools, whatnot, in Bryn Mawr or in Wayne or elsewhere locally, but really in the larger Philadelphia area. Our alumni clubs across the country also will do the same thing on that day. They'll bring in alumni, whether it be in Los Angeles or Dallas, Texas, or, Chicago, to, engage in a day of service. So it's all, the entire Villanova community on one day, really doing what we strive to do to carry out our values of the institution. That being said, that's one day, which is pretty major, but we make it a point to, it's not just one day, right? This is a continued effort that's important, to be focusing on social justice. And again, I think our students, they come into Villanova very social justice oriented. We work to instill that, in them further during their time on campus, and then when they move off campus, they really take that with them and are looking for different ways to engage in. And I see them doing that in our local community.
And Sid, you're going to be involved with orientation this year, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. 2 forms of orientation.
2 forms of orientation.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about freshman orientation
Sure.
before we talk about off-campus housing orientation?
Yes. So orientation at Villanova, basically what happens is all first-year students will come and move in shortly before most of our other students, and they have a 4-day orientation program. So it's typically that Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday before classes start on that Monday. And basically, they get placed into an orientation group with an orientation counselor, and that orientation counselor really kind of serves as that upperclassman point person to kind of integrate them into the community right off the bat. So they're doing different things throughout that 4-day, just everything from learning about campus resources to meeting other new students, right? People they might be living with, people that are going to be in their classes. So it's kind of a great combination of learning what you need to know, as soon as you come to Villanova, everything from the meal plan to where your classes are going to be to just having fun and meeting people, and there's entertainment, and it's really high energy and it's really fun.
I can tell you absolutely love it.
Yeah, I was an orientation leader back in the day. So that's definitely my world, and I think it's really important to kind of integrate our students right off the bat into just a really positive community and set the tone, immediately.
That's great.
Yeah.
So a little bit about off-campus housing orientation. Our offices are working on that for the fall. It's something that's never been done in Villanova. We're very excited about it. So can you guys just give us a little overview of how you see that working, what's in the works?
Yeah, sure. So as you know, I know kind of immediately when I came on to the team and the Dean of Students, Nick had said, we're really interested in an off-campus housing orientation. Like you said, it's never been done, but we really feel like we need a program to support our off-campus students. So it's really just going to be an additional opportunity to say again, hey, we're excited that you're moving off campus. We are not sad. We are happy for you, and this is going to be a new point in your Villanova career. That in-between, transition. So here are ways that we can support you, and please know that you still, even living off campus, you have a lot of resources on campus and people on campus who are still here to support you, and you can take advantage of, whether that be the counseling center, whether it be the Dean of Students office. Also know that, the Code of Student Conduct still does apply to you. So let's talk about that. So that's more of the preventative work that we're able to do through that off-campus housing orientation.
And we're very excited. Do you want to add anything there?
Yeah, we're looking forward to, making that an opportunity at the beginning of the year for students who are living off campus to gather. And where I know we're inviting different agencies and vendors, that our students are going to interact with, whether it be utility companies or transportation or the business associations or what have you. So that first opportunity to meet those people or to learn about their offerings. And again, we want them to know that, they've moved off campus, but they're still a Villanovan, and, they still need to represent themselves and Villanova in a way that they are going to be happy with, that's going to set them up for success, and that we're all going to be proud of, at the end of the academic year.
Yes, looking forward to it. Well, thank you both so much for joining me today. I'd like to thank Nick Tumolo and Sid Scheiner for participating in today's show. We look forward to next month's show as we continue to introduce you to other individuals making news and positive impact on our community. For more information on some of the great things happening at Villanova and opportunities to be involved, please visit www.villanova.edu/neighbors.